Hello everyone, welcome to ITLS Academy. In this lecture, we are going to Fundamentals of Immunology, that is part 2. In the last lecture, we have covered the basics of immunology and also we have covered the innate immune system. So, in this lecture, we will discuss adaptive immune system. Microorganisms which successfully overcome the non-specific defense mechanism then have to be contained with a second line of defense. The specific defense mechanism. This involves the stimulation of a specific immune response by invading microorganisms and are evoked by what are termed immunogens. These may cause the appearance in the serum of modified serum globins called immunoglobins. The term antigen is given to a substance that stimulates immunoglobulins that have the ability to combine with the antigen that stimulated their productions. These immunoglobulins are then termed antibodies. All antibodies are immunoglobulins, but it is not certain that all immunoglobulins have antibody function. Antigens associated with microorganisms consist of proteins, polysaccharides, lipids, or a mixture of the three, and invariably have a high molecular weight. These immunoglobulins are then termed antibodies. The antigen antibody reaction is a highly specific one, and this specificity is due to differences in the chemical composition of the outer surfaces of the organism. Bacteria, rickettsia, and viruses all have the ability to induce antibody formation. The synthesis and release of free antibody into the blood and other body fluid is termed the humoral immune response. Antigens, however, can induce a second type of response which is known as the cell-mediated immune response. So we can say that two types of immune responses are generated in our body. First one is humoral immune response, while the second one is cell-mediated immune response. The antigenic agent stimulates the appearance of sensitized lymphocytes in the body, which confer protection against organisms that have the ability to live and replicate inside the cells of the host. Certain of these lymphocytes are also involved in the rejection of the tissue graft. Antigenic structure of the microbial cells. The microbial cell surface constitutes a multiplicity of different antigens. These antigens may be common to different species or types of microorganism or may be highly specific for that one type only. Three groups of antigens are found in the intact bacterial cells. First one is H antigens. These are associated with the flagella and are therefore only found on motile bacteria. The precise chemical composition of flagella can vary between bacteria, resulting in a range of different antibodies being produced, and use is made of these differences in the typing of different strains of Salmonella. Next one is O antigens. These are associated with the surface of bacterial cell wall and are often referred to as the somatic antigens. The specificity of the reaction between these antigens and the corresponding antibodies in gram-negative bacteria is due to the nature and number of the type-specific polysaccharide side chains attached to the lipid A and core polysaccharide portion of the lipopolysaccharide. Next one is surface antigens. Remember that we are studying here types of antigens that were H, O and surface antigens. So third one is surface antigens. Many bacteria possess a characteristic polysaccharide capsule external to the cell wall, and this too has antigenic properties. Over 80 serological types of gram-positive pneumococcus group have been differentiated by immunologically distinct polysaccharide in the capsule. Certain gram-negative organisms of the enteric bacteria, for example Salmonella, may possess a polysaccharide microcapsule which is also antigenic and is thought to be responsible for the virulence of the bacteria. Now come to the cells involved in immunity. The cells that make up the immune system are distributed throughout the body but are found mainly in the lymphoreticular organs, which may be divided into the primary lymphoid organs, that is the thymus and bone marrow, and the secondary or peripheral organs, that is lymph nodes, spleen and Peyer's patches. So we can say that our immune cells are divided into primary lymphoid organ and secondary lymphoid organ. We can say that a large number of cells are involved in the immune response and all are derived from the multipotential stem cells of the bone marrow. The predominant cell is the lymphocyte, but monocytes, macrophages, endothelial cells, eosinophils, and mast cells are also involved with certain immune responses. The two types of immunity, that is humoral and cell-mediated immunity, that we have already studied in our previous lecture, are dependent on two distinct populations of lymphocytes, the B cells and the T cells respectively. Both the humoral and the cell-mediated systems interact to achieve an effective immune response. Humoral immunity. So we are going to discuss humoral and cell-mediated immunity in detail in this particular lecture. Humoral immunity, known as antibody-mediated immunity. This is the most important point, that is humoral immunity is antibody-mediated immunity, is due directly to a reaction between circulating antibody and inducing antigen and may involve complement. The B cells originate in the bone marrow. In chickens, a lymphoid organ embryonically derived from gut epithelium and known as bursa of Fabricus is responsible for the maturation of the B cells into immunocompetent cells, which subsequently can synthesize antibody after stimulation by antigens. Each B cell is only capable of recognizing one epitope via a specific receptor on its surface. This receptor has been shown to be antibody itself. Activation of the B cells occurs by binding of the antigen to the receptor and the resultant complex is endocytosed. Antigens requiring the assistance of Th, that is T helper cells, are termed as T-dependent antigens. Subsequent antigenic stimulation results in high antibody titers, that is secondary or memory responses, as there is now an expanded clone of cells with memory of the original antigen available to proliferate into mature plasma cells. The immunoglobulins molecules can be divided into different classes on the basis of their structure, and in humans, 5 major structural types can be distinguished. These immunoglobulin molecules can be divided into IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE and IgD. These are 5 types of immunoglobulins present in human body. Each type has been distinguished on the basis of a polypeptide chain structure consisting of one pair of heavy or large chain and one pair of light or small chains joined by disulfide bond. All classes have similar sets of light chains consisting of one of 2 types, the kappa or lambda chains. Native immunoglobulins are rather resistant to proteolytic digestion, but certain enzymes have been useful in elucidating their structures. Papain cleaves the molecules into 3 fragments of similar size. First one contains 2 Fv fragments, each carrying a single antigen combining site and comprising the variable regions of both chains, the constant region of the light chains and the first constant domains of the heavy chains. And second one fragment will be one Fc fragment composed of terminal halves of the heavy chains which have no affinity for antigen but can be crystallized. Cleavage with pepsin yields 2 fragments only, one consisting of 2 Fab fragments and the other an Fc fragment which is partially degraded by the enzyme. The variable regions on both The heavy and light chains contribute towards antigen recognition, whilst the constant regions of the heavy chain, particularly the Fc part of the heavy chain backbone, direct the biological activity of the molecule. So, now our next topic is monoclonal antibodies. After antigenic stimulation, the normal antibody response involves the activation of a large number of clones of antibody secreting cells. This is due to the fact that antigens possess multiple epitopes. In 1975, Kohler and Milstein successfully developed cell fusion techniques which enabled them to isolate clones of cells which synthesized identical antibody molecules. The principles of the technique rely on the fact that an antibody secreting cell can become cancerous, and the unchecked proliferation of such a cell is called a myeloma. Progeny of the original transformed cell will continue to secrete a single kind of antibody molecule only. Myeloma cells, like other malignant cells, grow indefinitely in tissue cultures. However, the specificity of the antibody is unknown. Mouse myeloma cells are fused with an antibody secreting cell from the spleen of a mouse immunized with the required antigen. The technique is called somatic cell hybridization, and the resultant cell is termed as a hybridoma. The rate of successful hybrid formation is low, and a technique is necessary which can select these successful fusions. The standard technique is to use a myeloma cell line that has lost the capacity to synthesize hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase, or we can say HGPRT. This enzyme enables cells to synthesize nucleotides using an extracellular source of hypoxanthine as a precursor. The absence of HGPRT is normally no problem, as cells can use an alternative pathway. When, however, these cells are exposed to aminopterin, a folic acid analog, they are unable to use this other pathway and become fully dependent on HGPRT that is on the hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase. This is the main enzyme which is used by the myeloma cells. The cell fusion mixture is transferred to a culture medium containing hypoxanthine, aminopterin, and thymidine, and this is combinedly known as het medium. Now, unfused myeloma cells are unable to grow as they lack SGPRT. Unfused normal spleen cells can grow, but their proliferation is limited and they eventually die out. The hybridoma cells can proliferate in the het medium as the normal spleen cells supplies the enzyme which enables the hybridoma to utilize extracellular hypoxanthine. The hybridoma is now screened for the production of the desired antibody by testing the supernatant from each culture. A single culture, even though positive for antibody production, can contain the progeny of two or more successful fusions. Therefore, it is necessary to dilute positive cultures so that fresh cultures can be started with a single hybridoma cells. Uses of monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are very sensitive, specific reagents and have applications in many areas of the biological sciences. They revolutionized immunology within a few years of their discovery. The investigations and characterizations of cell surfaces by probing with monoclonal antibodies is one of the most vital areas of application. In this context, they have been used in the following ways. First is to study the ABO and rare blood groups. Second one, to detect HLA antigen and consequently to type tissues for transplantation. Third one is to classify cell lines, for example T cell subsets, and hence to separate these cells subpopulations. Fourth use is to study cell-cell interactions and differentiations, for example in embryology. Fifth use in oncology, to study the relationship between the normal and tumor cells, to detect tumor associated antigens and subsequently to enable cancer therapy to be monitored to locate tumor metastasis and to deliver cytotoxic drugs, toxins, radionuclides or liposomes to tumor cells. 6. And last, use to identify and characterize bacterial and viral antigens which can then be purified and used to prepare subunit vaccines. We can say that monoclonal antibodies have further been employed for studying drugs and hormone receptors, enzymes, and proteins. A whole range of immunoassay techniques using monoclonals have been developed to detect how levels of materials in body fluids changes. So thank you very much guys for watching this session. You can follow ITLS Academy on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp and also on LinkedIn. You can subscribe ITLS Academy on YouTube and also you can get it on Google Play Store. Thank you very much again for watching this session.